Don't look at me like that, you drab little spinster. That was my sister Boss sneering as she shoved 4 shivering sick children into my hallway on Christmas Eve, then checked her reflection in the window. Fur coat glinting champagne lifestyle shining, she left me to a world of feverish cries and trembling hands. I glanced at my nursing textbooks, then back at the children, realizing that her promised hour of care was a lie. That night and the years after were about to change everything. I had a plan long before that doorbell rang, a vision of myself in a surgical coat, the bright lights of an operating room reflecting off polished steel. I had the grades, the discipline, the acceptance letter to a top-tier medical program. But life had other designs. 4 traumatized children didn't fit into a surgical residency. So I made the first silent cut. I shredded my acceptance letter and became a floor nurse instead. The pay was smaller, the prestige gone, but the hours were stable and I could be home by 6. Every day became a balancing act of fevers, lunches, school projects, and scraped knees. Sacrifice is sold as noble, but no one tells you it is exhausting. By 25, my first gray hair appeared, a quiet herald of years stolen. By 28, dating felt impossible. How do you explain that you come packaged with 4 little humans who call you mom by accident? I was drowning in a life I hadn't chosen, always terrified that I was failing them. The exhaustion was physical, settling into my muscles. My shoulders hunched from long nights by the bed of a sick child, hands perpetually damp from disinfectant. The erosion was quiet too, a subtle fading of my own desires. My own identity as my youth was claimed piece by piece. Yet looking back, I realized something else was happening. While I lost the freedom of my 20s, I was building something stronger than any career could offer. Each sleepless night, each tear wiped, each meal prepared, and each bandage applied was a small brick in a foundation of care. I became the parent they deserved simply by showing up day after day, even when my own dreams seemed like distant echoes. The contrast was sharp. My sister living in pixels and glossy photos, glowing on yachts and champagne in hand, while I smelled of bleach and sick, my hands always full. It was not the glory I had imagined, not the accolades or respect from colleagues, but there was a quiet power in the rhythm of this life and the uncelebrated work of shaping stability and love for 4 small hearts. Every day tested me, stretched me, reshaped me, and slowly I realized that while I had given up my own ambitions, I was creating something unbreakable, a life built on presence, endurance, and an unwavering commitment to those who needed me most. For the first year, every car that drove past our house sent the children running to the window, eyes bright with hope. "Is Mommy coming back?" they would ask, clutching each other or my sleeve, tiny hands desperate for reassurance. I lied to them, telling stories about the work trips and distant obligations, protecting Batya's image because I thought it shielded their hearts. But children are sharper than we give them credit for. Around year 4, those questions shifted, jagged and painful. Why doesn't she want us? Each inquiry was like a blade twisting in my chest. I held my niece as she sobbed over a Mother's Day craft, with no one to give it to, and cradled my nephew through fevered nights, his small body trembling in my arms. Every tear I wiped, every heartbreak I absorbed was mine to carry so it wouldn't poison them. I became a vessel for their grief, my own exhaustion, mounting silently. The daily milestones became exercises in resilience, birthdays without presents, school performances without applause from the person who should have been there. Quiet evenings where stories were read twice because there was no one else. And yet through all of it, the resentment toward Bhatia solidified, hardened into something like concrete. She wasn't just absent, she was a ghost, haunting every meal, every scraped knee, every bedtime story. The weight of her neglect pressed down on me in small, relentless ways. The cumulative effect of years spent making up for what she refused to provide. Even in moments of joy, like a laugh shared over pancakes or a triumphant school project completed, there was the silent reminder of what was missing, the void left by her absence. I became both parent and shield, absorbing disappointment, smoothing over heartbreak, and carrying the burden of questions I had no real answers for. It was a quiet, exhausting labor invisible to the world outside our walls, yet every action carried a significance I could not escape. And as their trust in me grew, so did my awareness of the enormity of the task shaping childhoods, healing wounds I did not create, and facing the long shadows of a mother who chose not to be there. Each day demanded patience, empathy, and a vigilance I had never anticipated, forging a strength I would rely on for the battles yet to come. The breaking point didn't come with a scream or a fight. It came at our grandmother's funeral. She was the matriarch who had always held the family together, the one who remembered birthdays and quietly sent checks to support the children. Bhatia didn't come. She claimed she was too distraught to fly back from Milan, sending a wreath so large and overbearing it blocked the view of the open casket. The priest had to pause the service just to move it. I sat in the front pew holding 4 crying children, and something shifted inside me. The fog lifted. Bhatia wasn't careless or distracted. She was a malignant presence, a woman who believed money and grand gestures could replace real responsibility. In that moment, I stopped excusing her. I stopped filtering her cruelty, interpreting it as misunderstanding or circumstance. Resentment, which had long been simmering, solidified into resolve. I realized that every absence, every missed birthday, every tear I had absorbed for her children had been an opportunity to build strength and awareness, not just endurance. From that afternoon forward, I became a record keeper, a strategist. The emails, the texts, the small betrayals, they were no longer just memories. They were evidence. The helplessness and exhaustion that had defined the years began to transform into clarity and purpose. I understood that this wasn't simply about surviving Bhatia's absence anymore. It was about recognizing her patterns, preparing for the eventual moment she would reappear, and turning years of sacrifice into leverage. The narrative of my life had shifted. I was no longer just the caretaker, endlessly giving, endlessly forgiving. I was alert, calculating, and ready to confront the challenges ahead with a precision that mirrored every night spent tending to these children. Last Tuesday, the doorbell rang on a bright, clear morning. I was pouring cereal, the house alive with the usual chaos of the morning rush. Half expecting a delivery, I opened the door and froze. There she was. Bhatia, 12 years older but looking younger than me, every inch preserved by expensive skincare and a life without responsibility. Behind her stood a lawyer's suit, stiff and precise. She didn't hug me. She didn't ask about the kids. She walked past me into the living room, heels clicking against the hardwood I had refinished with my own hands. "We need to talk about the estate," the lawyer said, laying out custody and property claims. The house fully paid, the one stable constant in the children's lives, was suddenly under threat. Nausea rose in my throat. but I forced calm, the instincts of years in the ER kicking in. I observed her, really observed her. The scuff on the corner of her Chanel bag, hastily masked with black Sharpie, the polished leather folio hiding papers she barely understood. Her posture screamed confidence, but the details whispered desperation. She wasn't here because she'd healed or missed her children. She was broke, seeking a bailout from my grandmother's trust. And in that moment, a plan began to form, precise and cold. I realized that everything Batya had ever believed about me, that I was passive, compliant, and capable of strategy, was about to be turned against her. I did not need to confront her with anger or accusation. I needed patience, observation, and leverage. Every word she spoke, every gesture, every subtle slip became part of a larger calculation. My years of care, my meticulous record-keeping, and my understanding of her patterns were now tools I could wield. I felt a strange clarity, a sense of calm I had not known for years. While Batya projected wealth and superiority, I could see the cracks, the desperation beneath. And as I led the children away from the kitchen and into their morning routines, I knew that this encounter would not be about who could yell the loudest. It would be about precision timing and strategy. And for the first time in over a decade, I felt fully prepared. After Batya left that morning, I didn't collapse or call anyone to vent. I went straight to the attic, a place I had treated as a museum of her past life for 12 years. Boxes she had abandoned, neatly sealed, now became evidence. I tore open the first box with a serrated knife, searching not for nostalgia but for proof. Layers of moth-eaten designer clothes and old yearbooks yielded a relic from the past. A BlackBerry Curve, cracked and clunky, the very device she had used to text me in her first week of abandonment. I plugged it into a tangle of wires, an ancient USB cable from the junk drawer, and waited, willing it to awaken. After tense minutes, a faint red light blinked, and finally, the screen flickered to life battery, hanging on at 4%. Navigating the stiff trackball, I found the messages from December 26th, 12 years ago. Keep them. They ruined my aesthetic. I'm not coming back. I photographed the screen with my iPhone, capturing sender ID, date, and content, the ghost of her cruelty now concrete. The device went dark forever, but its testimony was sealed. Next, I turned to the living trust documents, the fireproof box my grandmother had left behind. Batya had known about this money but had never read the conditions. Paragraph 4, Clause B, distribution of the family trust, $200,000, contingent upon continuous unbroken care of the minor children. Every sleepless night, every school drop-off, every meal prepared now had legal weight. Years of sacrifice became leverage. The slow labor of love transformed into tangible power. I realized the beauty of the plan. I didn't need to fight with anger or force. The documents, the records, the photos, all precise, undeniable, would allow Batya's arrogance and disregard to trap her. I had shifted from caretaker to strategist, my empathy sharpened into insight, my patience honed into a weapon. The attic, once a repository of memory, had become a command center. Each item I gathered was a calculated step toward balance and justice. The tension of preparation thrummed through me, but I was calm. For the first time, the years of quiet suffering had become not just endurance, but advantage. The game was set. All that remained was to execute with precision, letting the weight of evidence and the inevitability of consequence do the work I could not have imagined 12 years ago. I arrived early at the neutral location, a sterile office with the scent of lemon polish and old paper, a long mahogany table stretching between us like the operating room tables I had once dreamed of. Mr. Henderson, the estate attorney who had drafted my grandmother's trust, sat at the head, a man of few words and absolute precision. I laid out my arsenal with quiet deliberation to my left, a thick ledger itemizing every dollar I had spent raising the children over 12 years, adjusted for inflation, an invisible threat now made tangible. To my right, a single-page affidavit of voluntary non-involvement bait, and beneath the folders hidden from view, the living trust itself, the blade waiting for its moment. I checked my watch. 1:58 in the afternoon. My hands were steady, my heart slow. Years of caregiving had trained me for this rhythm, observe, assess, act. The elevator dinged. Her heels clicked sharply against marble, impatient, confident. Batya entered, bringing with her the scent of expensive perfume arrogance and a world that had never known responsibility. She pulled out a chair, sat drumming manicured nails on the table, a sly smirk playing on her lips. "I have a spa appointment at 3. Where do I sign for the house?" she said, eyes sweeping over my scrubs still marked with traces of my night shift. She thought she had already won, that her loud presence and entitlement could crush me. I said nothing. I slid the ledger across the table. "What's this?" she asked, feigning interest. "An itemized record of every dollar spent raising your children," I replied. She flipped through the pages until the final total $300,000. "You're insane," she said, face blanching. I reminded her, since she claimed custody as the biological mother legally, she was responsible for half. Her color drained further, panic beginning to show. "This is extortion," she stammered. "It's the cost of motherhood," I said, watching her recalibrate. I slid the affidavit over a simple single-page offering. Freedom she thought she craved, no involvement, no contact, 12 years accounted for, signed and sealed. Her greed outweighed suspicion. She saw salvation, not a trap, and signed without reading. "Done," she smirked. The notary notarized it swiftly. Finally, I slid the living trust across. Slowly, she read, "The clause assets go to the primary caregiver, providing continuous, unbroken physical care." "I'm the mother," she whispered. "No," I said, pointing to the affidavit. "You just swore you provided none." Her eyes widened as comprehension dawned, then panic surged. She had lunged for the papers, screamed, but the signing was logged irreversible. Security escorted her out. The room fell silent. I exhaled once, quietly. Years of meticulous care, strategic patience, and emotional endurance had culminated in this moment. The arrogant sister who thought she could waltz in and claim what she had abandoned had been undone by the very neglect that once filled me with resentment. Poetic justice, precise and complete, delivered not with force, but with the calm calculation of someone who had always known the stakes and never wavered. That night, I returned home to the familiar chaos of dinner plates and scattered toys, the comforting smell of pizza filling the air. The children were asleep on the couch, their small forms curled up in peace, unaware of the battle that had just concluded on their behalf. I pinned the cashier's check from the trust to the fridge beside their drawings, a silent symbol of security restored. Sitting in the quiet of the kitchen, I reflected on the years of sacrifice, the lost youth, the sleepless nights, the relentless care I had given without recognition. Each moment of hardship had been a thread in a fabric that now held strong against the world's pressures. Justice had not come from anger or confrontation, but from careful observation, patience, and unwavering dedication. I had transformed from the exhausted caretaker into someone capable of strategy, foresight, and subtle triumph. And in that transformation, there was a quiet satisfaction, a knowledge that resilience and cleverness honed over years of selfless labor could safeguard those you love. The children would never have to experience the absence or negligence that had defined so much of our past. In the stillness, I allowed myself a small, private smile, knowing that the long arc of responsibility and care had culminated, not just in victory, but in the affirmation of the life we had built together. The house, our home, remained a sanctuary, and the children who had relied on me without knowing it could now continue their lives enveloped in the stability and love I had fought to preserve. And finally, for the first time in a dozen years, I felt a deep, unshakable sense of closure. This story shows the quiet power of perseverance, patience, and clever strategy. Years of sacrifice, careful observation, and unwavering dedication turned hardship into triumph, and the narrator's resilience ensured justice and security for those who depended on her. As we reflect on the journey, it's a reminder that sometimes the most profound victories are earned through patience, wisdom, and long-term commitment. If this story resonated, consider liking and subscribing to explore more tales of courage, strategy, and quiet triumph.